Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the second channel Geography News video. Today I wanted to talk about that controversial part of the Middle East, which is so controversial, people don't just disagree about the name, they disagree about whether it is one country or two, and so that is what makes it so confusing when you hear in the news that there is a long and difficult war going on there where Hamas have attacked from Gaza, and why would Hamas want to attack Israel from Gaza is a very confusing issue if you're not politically online and don't know what Hamas are or what Gaza are, why they have a big issue of Israel. But today I wanted to vaguely explain that because lots of people will learn just enough to have some hyper-partisan view on it, but I think when there is a bunch of people dying, it's much more important to know what is happening, why is it happening, and how will this actually affect the world and the map of it going forwards, because it is very interesting and it is a big war happening and lots of those seem to be going on right now. And so what exactly is the deal with Israel and why is it being, perhaps you might say invaded, or why is it going through a war? This is something which is kind of easily explainable by looking at a map and seeing that the country of Israel has very messy borders. Some of these are with other countries. The Syria-Israel border is definitely 4 separate lines that are just kind of messily decided. Is this Israel or is this Israel or is this Israel? Who knows for sure? But the important thing to say is that there are lots and lots of messy borders externally for Israel, but there's also the very interesting situation of inside Israel. There are 2 parts of the country which are specifically set aside as Palestinian areas for a Palestinian national authority to govern them, and so they had elections in these areas in 1996 after the agreements were signed, and in 2006. However, in 2006, the election was won by Hamas as opposed to Fatah. You don't need to know about the 2 separate organizations, but basically, almost every one of the Palestinian people have a big belief that they should be running their own country, not just having their own legislative council and making their own laws, but like they should actively control this entire thing, because obviously they were there before it, and although they never had an independent country, they were part of the Ottoman Empire, and every other part of the Ottoman Empire, after Turkey let Syria go independent, the Syrians got Syria, the Iraqis got Iraq, the Saudis got Saudi Arabia, and so to them it should have been obvious that the Palestinians would get Palestine, but instead what you might argue if you're Palestinian is that no, actually the rest of the world decides that the Jewish people get Palestine, and it becomes called Israel instead. In reality, Israel has like it's not a Jewish only state as people like to imagine, but what this leads to is a lot of Palestinian people living in self-governing areas called the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, some of whom are very in favor of all of whom are in favor of a independent Palestine, some of whom are in favor of doing that via as peaceful means as possible, still pushing hard, and some of whom are like, well, I mean, if it involves a little bit of terror, then that's something that we need to do. We need to fight for our freedom, and the people who believed in that got a majority in the election in both parts of it. However, just after this, Hamas specifically took over and kind of had a little coup in there, and they can specifically now control Gaza, which means Gaza is controlled by this one political organization, and they do not hold elections anymore. Elections would just get in the way of the true freedom which they desperately need, and so that is why instead of elections, what they are holding are of course military attacks. There has been a lot of back and forth militarily speaking between Gaza and Israel, who you might understand why there is tension. Both places implicitly have this view that the other one probably shouldn't be there. To Gaza, Israel is squatting on all of their land, and on all of their land, whereas if you are Israel, Gaza is a terrorist organization that openly says that you're squatting on their land and actively says we are going to kill you, and then actively fires missiles at you. And so you can kind of see, especially when those missiles are fired, Israel fires back, you can see how messy that gets. And that is why when Palestine infiltrates or maybe attacks or maybe reclaims their territory, depending on how you feel about it, you can see how that leads to a lot of very high emotions here. And so this is what happened. Palestine did a surprise attack. I say surprise not because like, oh yeah, in war you're meant to write a formal notice, because to them this isn't a normal war, this is fighting for their liberation. I say surprise because Israel has one of the most well-funded intelligence organizations in the region. They should have been aware of this, but they were not. Somehow Gaza managed to stage all of these attacks and took over a significant part of the country. Indeed, they killed a mayor of a southern Israel region. They've gone into all sorts of civilian buildings. It's absolutely fascinating to dive into. If you look into exactly what's happening, there are people who have been in restaurants and have been taken as hostages. There are people who are just walking down the street or going to a music festival who have been killed. And then conversely, as a result of this, obviously the death toll is 600. I don't know if they're counting just militants or their own forces, but in response to this, then some pretty bad things happened there, where Israel has actively, in response, Israel airstrikes hit housing blocks in Gaza, tunnels, a mosque, and and the homes of Hamas officials, not just targeting the military operations, but targeting the homes of the people who are responsible, killing more than 400 people, including 20 children. In a surprise attack, the armed group killed 700 Israelis, so now you get to the point where you're like, well, 700 Israelis, 400, Palestinians, well, what's the... you get to the point where it's just, yes, lots of people are suffering on both sides, because what happens in war is people tend to escalate, and that means that, 12 Thai people have died, 4 Americans have been killed, a French citizen, 2 Ukrainians, a Mexican woman and man, and even worse than all of that, oil prices have gone up more than $3 a barrel. Can you believe what's going on there? But no, more seriously, you can see several airlines have cancelled their flights. The world is going through a very disastrous patch. And the reason for it is that there is a fundamental disagreement about who is in control of this area, because ultimately there is I mentioned this before, but history is the thing that lots of people use as their right to stake a claim somewhere, and maybe rightfully so. Even if all Italians were kicked out of Italy for one generation, they would probably want to go back at some point to the place where their ancestors are from. The fact that there is so much tourism to people's home places kind of proves that this is true. I knew all sorts of Indians in the UK who had never been to India and really wanted to at some point, because it'd be like, their people. I think it's incredibly interesting to see the places that you're from in this way. And what I think is also incredibly interesting, maybe you agree, is that Israel is a state that was set up as like, oh yeah, we messed up, we need to apologize to these people. And, it's the sort of thing where like, oh yeah, we accidentally killed a bunch of, it wasn't really we, I guess, it was some people accidentally killed a bunch of you guys, and I understand why you don't really like that. And so what if we set you up a country right there in the Middle East? The Ottoman Empire has just fallen apart, the equivalent of like an empire the size of the Romans falls apart, and there's a tiny patch of land where we could just give you a place and you could be your own people. And so that's what we did. The state of Israel was set up as the only like Jewish safe state, as a way that they couldn't be ruled by a foreign government. But to do to have a situation where they would not be ruled by a foreign government, they came in and effectively became a foreign government to the people who are already living there. To the people living there, this is a messed up atrocity. And so obviously there has been a long series of a long series of events that have been trying to be like, hey, could we just have that back? I know you guys need a territory, but it doesn't mean you can come into our home. Like, you guys are homeless, but also we have a house already, and we'd like it if you didn't live in it and then kick us out of there. And so that is the messy situation in Israel, is whose rights are stronger. The majority of the world would definitely say, and this is why I think people get politically charged, if you look at that and you say, well, obviously the people who are there longer get more, you're like, okay, so give the place to Palestine. And then what happens to the 5 million Israelis, what happens to the millions of Israelis, not all of whom are Jewish, by the way, and not all of whom have another place to go? Do you just send them somewhere else again? Because I think that's the very thing they were trying to avoid with the state. And so the goal for Israel, ideally, would be to find the middle ground solution that allows it still to exist as a place where both Palestinians, Jewish people, and non-religious Arabs of all different types could presumably all live together. Whereas your goal if you're Palestine is like, screw that. I mean, we could all live together, but if we all live together in my house, then it's us sharing my house when I paid for my house, and you guys just kind of came in here with, one day and said it was yours. How about, as a peace treaty, you get the F out of my house? And that's where things get messy. And that's where you might think, well, I mean, if I have to shoot one of these people, maybe the rest will leave my home. Maybe if I shoot 600 people, sure, that sucks. Maybe if people are dying in terrible things and we're taking hostages and people are being tortured and killed and every single terrible thing that happens in war, yeah, that might be bad. But what's the alternative? We let the people live here forever, and that's the messy, messy part. And so what makes this even messier is that, 1996 onwards, the Palestinian National Authority has existed. The idea of saying, okay, you want to have your own country, and we kind of want to continue existing. So what if, as a compromise, we have a world where you rule your own areas? It's so messy when you look at the West Bank, but you rule your own areas, right? And then that could be good, and then you have your own government. You could just issue your own stuff, and that could exist basically as a top-level entity inside of Israel. It was agreed in the Oslo Accords. I think this is such an interesting image of, the Israeli leader and the Palestinian leader, as well as Bill Clinton just being like, look, you're all friends now. That was basically agreed to by all parties, but that doesn't mean that it was an agreement that most people got on board with, which is why eventually this happened, and then Hamas took it over, and why the next election, which was scheduled, by the way, it was scheduled for 2010, and then 2020, and then 2021, and then indefinitely postponed. When you have the problem of saying, oh yeah, we don't, the place we control right now is not the same as the place that we deserve to control, starts to get real messy, because it's like, but you need to hold like elections and you need to consult the people. You can't just keep saying endlessly, no, we don't have to do that until later. We can take all the stuff from other people. And indeed, it's even messier for Hamas. Like, what do they have to lose by, what do they have to gain by holding an election? They have basically nothing, right? Indeed, they already control their territory just fine. Why would you want to even hold an election? And that's where things get so messy. Is like, yeah, the simple idea, if there are two groups of people, one of whom believes they just want their land back and the other of whom believes, well, we kind of need to live here, is very, very messy by itself. But add on to that there are separate political entities who gain very, very strongly from supporting their causes over basically all rational others, and you get to the messy place we're at, where lots and lots of people start dying. Oh, 100 Israelis held captive. Wow, I'm sure they will get out of there just great. Oh wow, what's that? The country have gathered 100,000 troops. That's going to go really well for Gaza when all those people get bombed. Wow, I really love that both of these sides are just gonna keep killing each other. What a great situation for everyone. And that's the reality, right? Is when people get too ideologically entrenched, you end up with this situation happening. But also on the converse side, if you look around at the rest of the world, people like to use this map. I think this is very commonly used as like this is why you don't concede land to Israel. We say, yeah, Jewish people can settle with Palestine if you want to, and like, oh god, have they overtaken us? And now it's Israel, and there's a little bit of Palestine, and oh dear god, oh is it now Palestine with a little Israel with a bit of Palestine, and oh, in the most recent agreement we agreed that Israel gets to control most of our areas, and people from there have come and started settling it. And so you start to very quickly end up with a situation where Palestine believes they will be left with a strip of land this thin, and you could argue they already have, and maybe what happens after that? One war comes in and now they have no Palestine left. They have no choice, right? I would say a more fair map of the region is this one. Personally, it shows that Israel just took over a whole part of Egypt for a little bit, which is fun. But I think the situation of having like effectively a government within a land to represent people who are part of something else is not a unique thing in the world. If you take the Republic Srpska in Bosnia and Herzegovina, there are the population is not quite half-half, but relatively half-half Bosnians and Serbians. And so what do you do about that? Well, you give them political control as much as you humanly can. This is the solution that worked there. It's worked to some extent in Northern Ireland with people who want to be part of the UK and people who want to be part of Ireland, nationalists and unionists or whatever. It's worked to some extent even in the United States. A lot of American Indians are happy with the control they have over their own reservations. All of these people are, these people and these people and these people, and they're all unhappy with the fact that they don't get to be their own fully independent place, as they believe that they have a right to the land and they controlled it previously at some point. But I think that it is the closest thing you can do to say, yeah, it is going to, in the world of countries, you kind of have to be on or off. You can't be like, oh yeah, this is Turkey full and this is half Turkey, where only some of the laws apply. In a world where everything has to be part of some country, unless you're Western Sahara apparently, but everything has to be part of some country, you do have to have this situation at some point where you come to a conclusion that either you become fully independent as, like a place that needs new territory or has to be disconnected into and not have airport access, and also, realistically, not airspace access or passport access or access to the rest of the world, or you need to say that within the current system, that's what you've got to do. And that is a real, that is a thing that will really get people beaten up, because although, to use all of these examples, if you live in, if you are a Native American, just 300, 400 years ago, this was your continent, which also is unfair because they never politically controlled the whole thing, right? Like, these people all controlled separate areas. So, but politically speaking, this is your land. Why is someone else just going to come here and take it from you? Isn't that kind of messed up? But that's the same thing that you might argue in the Israel thing. Well, isn't it messed up that not only did they take lots of the land, but then they make most of the land, administered by Israel or shared security control of Israel, and only the Area A parts, which are these very small areas here, get to be controlled directly by your own country. The real situation is that every compromise they try to reach here kind of makes it harder and harder for either side to get their eventual goal, because I'm sure if you're a Palestinian, you realize that you just got to keep going until it becomes so exhausting to deal with you that maybe you get something back. And if you're Israeli, you're just like, well, demographics are favoring us on this one. The longer we go, the less Palestine there has to be in our country. And so sure, fight us. I mean, we might be we're one of the best prepared militaries in the world. If you think this is going to go well, feel free to. And that's the messy bit. The war becomes kind of inevitable. And in case you're looking at this and you're like, oh no, Toy Cat, you're totally missing this point about my side. Imagine, imagine you are Ukraine and Russia. We're gonna use a nice emotional example. We're gonna make sure you feel bad no matter what your side is here. If Ukraine at some point decides they are going to take back Crimea by force, it has been a part of Russia for about just under 10 years now, but even before that, it was leased to Russia, so it's got this deep Russian history, but it is Ukrainian. It's attached to Ukraine, and so when Ukraine draws maps, it always includes Crimea because it is their territory to their minds, and so they are going to bomb innocent civilians to get it back. It, to them, is just they are doing the cost of war to get what they need, or indeed it could be much more. You could use the example for the parts of Ukraine that are full-on Ukrainian, right? But then on the other hand, when Russia says, ooh, this is our territory, I think we're going to defend this, you can also see why they can't just go, oh, you want this land back and you've just killed our civilians to get it? Oh, sure, have at it. Is there anything else you'd like? Would you like to have my fridge while you're at it, Mr. Man with a gun in my house? And that's the messy situation in the Middle East. And also, maybe the fact that it's so tense already within Israel hopefully explains to you a little bit of why other countries are so about it. But yeah, the real situation here is I don't think the map is going to change. I think the West Bank, the kind of more peaceful bit of Palestine, is going to be relatively unchanged. One day, the Gaza Strip will be integrated into a country, or maybe will be its own independent country. Maybe the long-term goal for Israel is to make it seem so unreasonable and separated from the rest of Palestine that will happen. But right now, I do believe that, like, yeah, it's not that the Israel state itself is threatened, it's just a lot of people are dying because people disagree about ideas. And in my goal, in the dream world, if we disagree about ideas, we can resolve that in ways that aren't explosives. But if you're the sort of person that wants to fire explosives because you believe in something so strongly, that in itself is an idea that you want to fire explosives about. And so, I don't know, go do that. Don't do that, actually. I'm gonna take that back. Do not explode people that you do not like. That is my hot take for today's video. If you are murdering civilians, taking people hostage and raping them, I would prefer you didn't. That is my hot take today. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. The next few videos you'll see in this channel are pre-recorded. I'm very preoccupied right now, to say the least. Gone through some stuff. And also, to just keep that in mind. And keep in mind that I think I said something about twice a day uploads on the channel. Might have to temporarily suspend that. I hope you don't mind. Also, thank you though to everyone who has been. Okay, look at this. We've got more people using the Amazon affiliate links. As you all know, the Amazon affiliate links are the only way that you can get yourself a Ninja SF301 Speedy Rapid Cooker, Air Fryer, 6 cook capacity, 12-in-1 functions to steam, bake, roast, sear, saute, slow cook, sous vide, and more. It's 15-minute speedy meals all in one pot, sea salt grey. It's the only way to get such a thing. However, I've been sending out the link to a lot of people, leaving them in the description of these videos so that people could get one if they wanted to, but weirdly enough, we still don't have a single air fryer 12-in-1 cooker sold. It's great. I loved mine when I had one, chat. It is so good. It does so many functions. You can do multiple functions at the same time if you don't have an air fryer, let alone a sous vide, a slow cooker, a searer, a sauteer, or more. Don't bother buying them individually and spending all that money. Get one at Amazon. It's linked in the description. Amazon.to/whatever. And don't stop buying Pokemon Spamton glasses or Japanese anime stickers for your laptop. You know, you shouldn't be buying these things, or indeed, balanced form, all-purpose, half-an-inch, extra thick, high-density, anti-tear exercise yoga mats. The yoga mats are fine, but really what you need to be getting is the Ninja's 12-in-1. I think it's very interesting to look at this, by the way. But thank you to everyone who is using the Amazon affiliate link. I hope you're doing wonderfully, and I'm gonna go, I think I've gotta go do some family stuff. Sounds fun. Have a good evening, everyone. I'll see you next time. Unless I don't. Have a bad day. Bye.